Hi, friends, and welcome to All the Things TV with me, Tiffany Jo Baker, where our heart is to help you grip God's grace, use your gifts, and get your goals, even in your mess and mission. Join us now for this episode of Season 2 of the podcast, where we talk about different areas that we may be on the struggle bus, so you can struggle less and succeed more and do all the things you've been called and created to do. Hello, y'all, and welcome back to All the Things TV with Tiffany Jo Baker. I'm really excited about today's topic. It is a topic that I think a lot of us struggle with, and it is a topic that can happen in your everyday life. Maybe you send a text and it doesn't land well. You have a conversation with a coworker and they don't get your heart in a matter, or just overall the feeling of being not heard and not understood. And today, that's what we're talking about, the struggle to be heard. And I couldn't think of anybody better than my friend Susan Hoekstra, who is here with us. She is a lay counselor, a songwriter. She is the author of a new book, A Firm Grasp, Feeling Validated in a Notice Me World, and also the podcast host of the Notice podcast. So she is all about how God sees us, hears us, and validates us, and how we can live in that space. Susan, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's great to be here.
I am super excited about this because I think we all have had these moments where our heart and our message just has fallen flat. And as that can grow, or if we have that experience too much, a wound can settle. And a broken spot can be created, and then our experiences over and over again will just feed that space. So I think it's super important for us to just be able to speak to that space of being heard and who Jesus is in the process. And I know you've had a journey and you've written an amazing book all about it and have a podcast that helps us.
And also take notice of what God is doing, because He's doing things. He's listening.
He is. He noticed us, and we can notice Him. And I love that give and take with the Lord. So let's just jump right in. I know validation and validating is a big word. So let's start maybe there. How would you, in layman's terms, maybe define, what does it mean to be validated?
I think validation, I call it in the book acknowledgement. And this is where we actually are present and we actually acknowledge what the other person said. We're not necessarily offering our opinion or those kinds of things. I have some different listening styles we get trapped into that we'll talk about in a minute, but we have so much stimuli coming at us, and we need somebody to just listen, to just hear and be present with us.
I think that's so good. That's a great definition to hold on to. Acknowledgement, being validated is being acknowledged. And I think it was Webster, I looked it up, and it said it's to recognize or affirm the validity or worth of a person, their feelings or their opinions, causing them to feel valued or worthwhile. It's that acknowledgement of you matter.
Well, we all take up this divine space, right? Like no one else takes up the space that I take up right now. No one else takes your space. The book, I call it divine space, because we all have a presence, and we sometimes try to interfere with people's space, and we don't allow them to have their space. And I think one of the best ways we can validate or acknowledge somebody is to recognize that they have their own space. They have their own thoughts. They have their own opinions. They have their own facets, the way they see the world, all kinds of things. And we just need to be okay with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So why is being heard such a valuable part of feeling validated and being validated?
Because the one way we really show our heart is by speaking. Because no one else can see the thoughts and intents of our heart except for God, right? So one way that we really get heard, or we try to communicate, is by speaking. And so when we tell other people what's in our heart, if they don't really listen, then we don't feel like they're really seeing us. And then we go, we go off on all kinds of tangents with that. So.
So true. Well, the Bible says, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So what a great point that when we open our mouth and when we speak, we're sharing a lot of times what is inside of us. And sometimes it's hard to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And when we, on the other end, hear well and see them well, they are in turn validated in what they're feeling and what they're doing. I love that. Okay, so you in your book have these 8 different listening styles. I know we don't have a whole lot of time, but I want you to briefly talk to us a little about these 8 styles, and then people can get more when they get the book. But share with us, what are those?
Sure. Well, these are ways that we get into trap of how we listen to others, and also how we receive how others listen to us. So we think we're being empathetic, but here's what we do. I call them characters because I just think it helps us remember. There's the storytellers. Those are the ones, the minute you start to say something, they tell their story. And then there's the advisors. The advisors always are coming across with advice or problem solving. And the problem with that is if someone gives their opinion, you won't feel as though you've been heard. And the judges, okay, they're the ones who give the blanket platitude statements. All men are jerks, or God is good all the time. Not that those aren't true, maybe, but those are, if we don't, it makes us feel like, well, everyone has problems. Your problems aren't that big a deal. Then the intruders, they talk over you. Okay, we all know those. That's easy. Problem solvers, they don't necessarily give advice, but they want the problem to go away. This is often a problem of patience. We're not patient enough to want to hear where that person is at. We want to quick and solve the problem. And then there's the teachers. The teachers believe life is a lesson, and whatever you're experiencing is a teachable moment. And it doesn't mean that there aren't teachable moments, but if we jump into teaching, then we feel corrected or punished sometimes. Then there's 2 more. The cheerleader. We think, okay, a cheerleader's encouraging. This is good. But, when a cheerleader say, you got this, and you're in the deep of pain, you don't feel like you've got it. You just want somebody to acknowledge that, I understand, hon. You don't feel like you've got this. And then, of course, the multitaskers. We know those because we're all guilty of it, is that we are busy doing 20 million things at once. And we say, oh, no, I'm listening. I can do the dishes while I listen. I'm not sure that works so well. So as you can tell, all those 8, I'm just going to have just do true confessions here, Tiffany. I'm guilty. I am.
Same
my
here.
name is Susan. I am guilty of all
Same
8.
here.
Okay, I'm guilty of all 8. But, God, I think it just helps us to become more aware of how we're listening, and also how others might not be listening to us. But, God has another way. He has another way. And so I'd like to offer just a couple different ways that we can think about that. And that is the best way that you can really know somebody feels heard, and I know everyone out there probably can relate to this, is to be present. And be comfortable in the silence of that presence. You don't have to jump in and say something. And I'm just purposely being quiet for a second so we get comfortable with that. We're not comfortable with that. Sometimes just your presence matters. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to do anything. And then we always want to ask clarifying questions, okay? This is okay, but ask permission first. I know that sounds funny, but if you say, can I ask a couple clarifying questions? Then they know that you really are trying to listen to them. But if you just jump into them, people feel attacked. Of course, body language, if I'm kind of droopy, you might pick up that something's not so good. So body language is big. And then, of course, reflection. Reflection is validation at its finest. It's always good. I try to do this in my counseling sessions. What I think I heard you say is that you're feeling frustrated or whatever the issue is. And when you repeat back what you think they said, people feel heard. And then I love the next one is offer a gesture. Maybe somebody's crying. Give them some Kleenex. They feel loved and they feel heard because they see that you're meeting them where they're at. And all these things, Tiffany, they're all wrapped up in mercy. Okay. Because here's the reality. None of us are perfect listeners. None of us are perfect communicators. So we struggle sometimes to even get out what's in our heart. And so we need to show mercy to each other on both ends, listening and people not listening to us. Because at the end of the day, we're all just trying to figure it out.
Isn't that the truth? And I love those points, especially just right now, the asking clarifying questions. You know, I'm a mom of 2 teen girls, and one of our girls, there's some communication issues as far as it just doesn't hit each other's heart right sometimes when we're going back and forth. And that's exactly what the Lord told me, because I'm one of those, I'm a problem solver. That's like my gift, right? One of my gifts is to see what can be better and the practical steps on how to do it. And so when your teenager's coming to just share a story, they don't want how it could be better. They're not in that space. And, you know, although I have all the answers, or so I think I do. But that's what the Lord told me. He said, stop coming with the solutions. Just ask her questions. Just ask her questions.
A key word here would be discovery. Is ask questions that would help them discover how to solve the problem. Because I know as parents, we want to jump in and just fix it. And sometimes it's just because we don't have time. I mean, let's just be honest.
True. Yes.
So we'll just take care of this now and talk about it later or whatever. So yeah, just being present, asking those questions, and asking questions that will allow the other person to discover just what is in my heart. Because frankly, we might be talking about it just because we want to figure it out. We don't really know what's on our heart. We talk to others because we're trying to sort through things, because life is complicated. And so that's why God gives us each other.
So good. Well, you've given us the 8 listening styles of what not to do, how not to listen. And then you've also given us some great tips on instead what to do, how to listen so others feel heard. What about for the people who are on the other end, who are sitting in that place that are like, I don't feel heard when I talk to this person. I don't feel like they get me, or they hear me, or they understand me. Any words of wisdom that you would give for that person in that space?
Well, first of all, I mean, connecting to your heart is a challenge all of us have, because sometimes we don't always know what it is. So showing yourself mercy and saying, I just say when you're talking, I'm not really sure what I'm experiencing right now, but it looks like frustration, or it looks like anger. And also to be willing to accept the fact that we are limited human beings. We make mistakes, and guess what? We sin. And when we accept those things about ourselves, we're going to be more likely to express them and get closer to them, because then you and I are relating. Like, if I make a mistake, I mean, are you going to get mad at me if I make a mistake, Tiffany? No. Okay. Because I spilled the milk, and unless I did it purposely and I was being mean, I mean, because there's that too. But the reality is that, and I also think here's a real important thing for any of us. We have to be careful. What is it we're asking people to listen to? There's a popular thing that came out some years ago about venting. And venting. Well, I just think that's just another word for complaining, perhaps. And we think we have to vent. Here's the thing. We get to lament, which is venting to God 24/7 in the moment. So if you're experiencing something, go to God and say, God, I'm frustrated with this. Can you help me figure it out? I don't get this. You might get that answer for God without even having to share it with someone else. Because God just, he sees you enough. He knows you 24/7. Folks, he knows. In Psalm 139, it says he knows what you're going to say before you say it. So I just said that, and God knew that I was going to say that.
That's amazing. And that word lament, that is a word that I've just started kind of just scratching the surface and diving in on what that is. And that could be a whole podcast series.
It could be.
But I appreciate you bringing that up, because God can handle it. He wants us to take those things to him
Mm-hmm.
and to share it with him and to vent to him and lament to him. So good. Well, I know I had asked you what one of your favorite Bible scriptures were, and you gave Psalm 18:6, and it says, "In my distress, I called upon the Lord. To my God, I cried for help. From his temple, he heard my voice, and my cry to him reached his ears." What does that
Amen.
say to you? Why do you love that?
Because God said he would do it.
Hmm.
And because he created us, he knows what's in our heart. Probably he knows the thoughts and intents of our heart even before we do.
Mm-hmm.
And so if he knows us that intimately, then of course he's going to listen, because he probably already knew anyway, which is hard for us to wrap our human minds around, because the only way you know what I'm really experiencing, Tiffany, is if I tell you, if I explain it to you, because you can't see the thoughts and intents of my heart until I talk.
So good. So true. Oh my goodness. Well, we could talk on and on about this, and I really want people to get more of this and take a look at your book, A Firm Grasp, and your podcast. Where can they find you for more about this
Well,
topic?
they can find me on my of course, you can find the book on Amazon, but you can also go to my podcast or my website, susanhoekstra.com. And that's Hoekstra.
Wonderful. And I'll make sure to have that in the notes, the show
Thank
notes,
you.
so that people can learn more and learn more. I think anybody can learn more, because whether either you're in the space of not feeling heard, or you're in the space of wanting others to feel heard better by you.
Right.
And so I think it's so powerful. Well, Susan, thank you so much for joining us today. I always love my opportunities to talk to you.
Sounds good. I hope that as people struggle to be heard, that they realize that we're all a work in progress. We're all still trying to figure it out.
Isn't that the truth? Isn't that truth? Well, thank you, friend. I appreciate you.
Sounds good.
And y'all, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Well, friends, thank you for joining us today on All the Things TV video podcast. If you enjoyed our time together and are taking away a nugget that has inspired your soul and success, would you share this episode with a loved one who could use it too? And if you haven't already, take a moment to rate and review the podcast and help me spread soul care and dream care. Until next time, I'm Tiffany Jo Baker, a 3-time surrogate and strategizer who loves to help you birth your God-given dreams. Now go do all the things you've been called and created to do with the grace and gifts God has given you.